Welcome back to the Energy Tips for Heart Warriors and Patreon supporters. Thank you guys for tuning in. My name is Jona Bryndis, and I'm going to give you an overview over how collective energies next week are going to affect you and how you can better deal with it. At least a roadmap. So I hope I can give you, if you've watched the energy update already, I talk about truth, the process of striving for truth and connecting with your true self in depth there. And when you look at the title here for this next week, Identity Crisis with a question mark, I'm explaining there how it is our identification with our ego, with our material self, if you will, that is in a crisis. It is not our true self that is in a crisis, but if we don't have an internalized experience with it, then we don't know it exists. We cannot identify with it. And therefore, I think, therefore I am, is basically the paradigm on which we are operating when we identify with the ego self. We become what we think. And that's the part here that we need to untangle in this intense time of straddling two worlds, in this transition from just seeing ourselves as this sort of 3D self, biology, psychology, physics, and understanding that we are much more than that, that we are also an energetic and etheric self. The reason why this is even coming up now in these times of revelation, if you will, is because we are more and more questioning our truth, and rightly so. Because the way we see things is the way, our truth sort of forms in ourselves. And if we can only see a small part of the bigger picture, all right, then we cannot be sure what it is that we are seeing is true. And this is what a lot of you guys go through. You have all these perceptions, you have a lot of stuff that comes in, and you are utterly confused and overwhelmed by what this info is. Am I connected with my true self? Is this true self guidance? Is this coming from the divine? Or is this coming from the ego, or from the astral, from the collective? And that's why this is so important, guys. This is a medicine, a technology that is already in you, that you are awakening to right now. And this isn't learned, over a weekend. This is a process, often a lifelong process. So all these souls that have incarnated here into this 3D material world at this time came with the awareness that they're gonna have to go through this transition from, just seeing the world in this material way to recognizing that there's also an ethereal way, that there's also an etheric reality to things. And we use the word energy to describe these unseen aspects of our being, those things that are so hard for us, to grasp. Okay, so if you're asking me, energies is actually not even the right word for it. That is a compromise a bit. It's leaning itself to the physical understanding, the scientific understanding of reality. Okay, because in essence, what we are feeling are not energies. What we are feeling is the essence of ourself. All right, and the interpretation of that is what gets us into trouble, because if we cannot discern truth, if we don't know what we are feeling, what is forming within ourselves is based on our truth or other people's truth or political truths, then we don't really know who we are. And this is why, as a whole collective, we're going through this identity crisis, in as a whole, as well as on a nation level, as well as on a individual level here with our relationships. with our relationships, and especially with the relationship with ourself, with our true self. Our true self is the mediator between this multidimensional soul self that we are and, this 3D reality, all right? And the only way to navigate through this experience in full awareness with consciousness is to go into an active relationship with our true self. So this puts, of course, a whole different, light on esotericism and spirituality and all that. Most of us have already discovered that, dogmatism, all right, isn't the way. Religions cannot be the way. They're renderings of truth, based on other people's experiences of truth. All right, so the thing that comes in here with New Age, with the New Age movement, was, to recognize that there's something like divinity within all ourselves and that we need to experience it for ourselves. But the ego takes it and hijacks it, of course, and makes all this special, and creates this idea around this opinion around this, that we are chosen, or that there's something, sort of very powerful about this. Okay, and some of us also go into the opposite and feel like it's a curse. All right, both is specialness to a degree, but personally, my opinion about this New Age esotericism is that it creates the notion that everything needs to be positive, that everybody needs to be happy, that everybody, needs to be in harmony. And this is simply not true. This is not the reality yet. This is a fake positivity. And what does this do to you? What does this do to your ego self? It makes you feel inadequate. It makes you feel not good enough. It makes you feel like, there's no hope for you, because, you are beginning to see, your shadow and your ego, and you're willing to work with this. And then you think there's something wrong with you by not being able to live up to these ideals. And ideals, guys, are always identifications. So it's very important to understand that things such as fake positivity and political correctness and all this is not based on truth. It's based on politics, on agenda, on dogma, or, has nothing to do with awareness or discernment. Has nothing to do with truth. What we learn, though, from connecting and engaging with our true self and this sort of soul language that resides in us, right, is that there's a healing of all this, the suffering and the pain and the fear that we experience through our 3D existence, through our consciousness that can happen. And this can bring back meaning, this can bring back fulfillment. And that's the bridge that we're standing in front of. We have to walk across this bridge that leads us to truth. And in the process of that, we need to overcome a few things, such as the fear of truth, such as the identification with our ego and our thoughts and our body and our emotions, and also the idealizations of the ego. All right, so inadequacy and not feeling good enough, those are all part of this ego identity crisis. All right, they're not true. You are what you think you are. Okay, so one of the first things you guys need to remember to let go of is this blind belief in your mind, that your mind has it all figured out. Your mind is like very, very primitive compared to this information and also the context that is out there in this divine Wi-Fi. All right, that's like, I don't know if you remember this, but this is the times of 8-bit computers, where you had a black screen and this green blinking text going across your screen, as compared to the videos or the graphics or the stuff that you can see on your phone and navigate on your phone. So you don't know what is out there. So by avoiding truth or running away from truth, or not accepting all parts of it, all right, you are unable to really see the scope of it. And this is what we're dealing with right now. So as energetically sensitives and empaths, the focus now is on how to handle these times, how to handle, our emerging energetic perceptivity, our emerging etheric self in this limited material self inside of it, all right? And of course, it's the limitation of the mind that we need to accept, and the limitation of the body. That's not hard to accept because we experience this every day. We feel often, very heavy in our body, and that is not because our body is bad or anything. It's just that it is. All right. So what we learn here through what you are learning here together with me is how we can better adjust to it, how we can reset, how we can use our energetic, our spiritual practice and training here to help all these different bodies in us to become more congruent, to become more harmonious, to work together. And, as for the physical is concerned, it really means we have to learn how to expand our physical energetically so that all this vastness, can fit in there, that it can hold it, that we can feel grounded and centered in the process. Emotionally, it means we have to learn to really embrace all our feelings, That emotional literacy is the only way how we can learn discernment. And our feelings, even our emotions, they can tell us a lot, but it is by us not wanting to see it or not wanting to connect with it due to trauma or due to, judging our anger, judging or judgment, or our fear, that you cut yourself off from it. And then mentally, we have to learn to embrace learning, okay? Learning as part of growth, as part of becoming wise. That's also an expansion, where all these things that we are experiencing can make sense if we understand. This is understanding. This has to do with our intellect growing into this, but really sort of through feeling it, through sensing it, and through being able to make sense of it, that we can grow into this soul self that we are, okay? And the true self is the connector here. That's the bridge, okay? And we find that in our heart. We find that through our empathy. We find this through the compassion, through the tenderness, through respect, humbleness, forgiveness. All right. So now we're entering sort of the spiritual realm, right? Regardless of what your religion is. And we see the necessity to really work with, these things that make us feel vulnerable, that make us feel, like a victim or being taken advantage of. All right. And, this heart opening then brings in a new awareness about beauty and about human connection. And, it awakens, it's like an upgrade that we get through that, where we go from mind to mindfulness to soulfulness by experiencing this deep connection with our own true self, and then as a consequence of that, also seeing other people's true selves and learning to respect them. And this is something, guys, especially in regards to self-worth and boundaries and all that, that you really need to understand. Each and every one of us who has boundary issues, okay? No matter how you see yourself, whether you see yourself as a victim or, bad person, doesn't matter, is not in truth, okay? If you have boundary issues, that means you're not respecting yourself, you're not connecting with your needs and your wants. That means you cannot respect other people's boundaries. You cannot respect other people's needs or wants. And therefore, you are not in truth. Okay? This needs to be said. I know the ego's temptation here to go into the victim and the victimizer of that. But that's the part that needs to be let go of. That's part of this shedding these layers. So straddling two worlds, which is the transition between just seeing yourself as a 3D person, with a false self and, the ego attachments, to seeing yourself as both at the same time, and learning how to balance all that, learning how to bring it into harmony without leaving the 3D. So this is also an ego seduction that says, oh, it's so hard and I don't want to do this and this is all, I'd rather opt out. And that's not an option, guys. Because from your true self's perspective, okay, all that means is that you have to come back and then you have to go through not only repeat, but probably also a little heftier portion of that suffering, so that you come to that experience of how to handle both worlds at the same time. Okay, so remember that there is a sacredness about yourself, and if you just see yourself as from your ego's perspective, in this material way, okay, you are denying this sacredness. You are denying your true self. You're denying your soul awareness. And therefore, you cannot feel it. You cannot hear it because you don't want to. So, this energy tips, I wanted to dedicate this really to motivate you guys to do more active steps towards this. Okay? To see that you have a choice. And to recognize that freedom is the expression of your spiritual freedom, of being able to be your true self and your 3D self at the same time. Okay? Truth is merely the consequence of all this awakening work. It's not something that you need to seek because it comes to you. So seeking without finding here on these last days of September is very poignant. Okay? I strongly recommend you guys in general to go into like this the deeper clearing, deeper detoxing on all levels, because many of us here in the process of this confusion have accepted or even enabled toxicity in our lives. So detox, start on the physical level and then work your way up. Physical first, emotional, mental, social, spiritual, etheric, and energetic. Okay. I hope that all of you received the email with the first anniversary present for all of you Patreons, where I'm offering you the 10-day challenge starting on Saturday for free. So many of you have already opted in. I've sent out the preparation email just a few hours ago. If you did not receive this offer, then please send me an email to Jona at transcodes.com. All right, so yeah, what is this seeing with new eyes? What does all that entail here in this next week? Collectively, there's a lot going on that has to do with seeing things from a new perspective, and you can see there's this karmic justice that is coming in. But don't mistake that as peace. It's not going to bring peace yet. All right, these two worlds are still clashing. The revelations, like here in the United States, our president is currently under an active impeachment inquiry. Some of the earth changers are under inquiry. Some of the big companies are under inquiry. The big banks are under inquiry. And we are starting to see more and more bankruptcies. So there is more and more truth coming forward, but it is not quite there yet. Where this could lead to this ratio of people significantly changing. It's this movement, guys, here into spiritual freedom and liberation from the material. Okay, will still take a little bit. We're just in the middle of it right now. Okay, so by January, February, there's going to be something really big that will accelerate that. But for the most part, it's the next 2-3 years that we have to live with all these scandals, all these betrayals, all these things that are coming forward, through diplomacy and intelligence and so forth. But there's also some other things, and this is a piece of info here that I already gave those who were in the energetic tune-up last night. If you are a crypto fan, then, and of course, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, don't want to be one. This is for entertainment purposes only. So, crypto fans, if you would like to entertain the idea of how some of these digital currencies can help you to hedge these larger bankruptcies and financial upheaval that we are looking straight at right now, then October will be your time. Okay, so in August, I told you get ready. Hope you did. I hope you know where, you have your wallets ready. I hope you know where you have your existing cryptos. Face it now, okay? Don't be afraid of it, okay? You had 2 years to prepare for this, all right? Energy center wise, it's continued our first chakra. That's this karmic resolution here, guys. This is still going to continue for most of October, just so you know. Same with our sixth chakra, the third eye, this awakening that we are all experiencing, these new pair of eyes. It's just becoming more and more clear. So some of the physical symptoms might go down for you now if you start working with it. So give yourself this time, go into mindfulness, do this deep breathing, do meditation, come to transmissions. Transmissions are energetic healing and training events, guys, that help you to clear the path, all right, and to experience this by yourself. And then specifically here for this next week after the new moon on Saturday, so that's going to be a little tricky the weekend still, right? Is going into this expression, going into like really saying, okay, you know what? I am a true self. I am that. Okay. And I honor that. And I honor that in others too. So this brings a lot of relationship issues, social issues, so to speak, here in this next week. So the way this will physically translate is many of you are going to have back problems, probably more in the upper back. I mean, next, like in 2 weeks, it's going to be more like the lower back, but the upper back, like here, the back of your heart chakra, gallbladder, overall stiffness, and your nervous system is going to start to feel a little better. But what's really, really important is the anchoring and the grounding here. This is part of this learning how to deal with straddling two wills. You have to honor this. You have to respect this. You need more grounding. You need more anchoring. You need to know how to clear your own energies and how to center in your heart. All right. So you need to really work with your energy management, but not just in this etheric way, also in the practical. You also need to learn how to manage your time better, how to manage your resources better, how to manage your overall energy, your overall life force energy. Okay, emotionally, lots of emotional stuff is going to get triggered here. Separation, anxiety, abandonment issues, and betrayal. But all of this is part of one big cluster, and that's the first chakra cluster. And the karmic aspect of this has to do with belongingness. So some of you find it very healing to go into connecting with your ancestors and releasing things there, knowing where you're from so that you can know who you are. And some of you find this emotional release through therapy or coaching, forming higher levels of emotional literacy, learning how to express your emotions better, journaling or going into any kind of creative process with your emotions is very beneficial. But the main perception of this will still be that you feel that there's like two sides in you, two parts, the ego self and the full self, or the 3D self and the soul self in you. All right. And so the picture that I want to give you here for this next week in regards to your emotions is accept that there are two wolves inside of you. Okay, this is a Native American saying, and make sure that you know which one of these you feed, because you become the one that you feed, the one that you focus on, the one that you energize. All right. Another tip is if withholding and withdrawing is part of your coping mechanisms, then maybe give this a bit extra attention next week and try to refrain from it. It's more about beholding. It's more about consciously feeling your emotions, sitting in it, but not marinating. Okay, this marinating, that you all perceived here in these last months, the stagnation where you just sit in there and you don't want to feel it, but it's there, you can't ignore it. Okay, this is coming to a stop now. All right, so all of you who got a bit frustrated and started to get really impatient, you need to make this a conscious choice. Okay, tell yourself, okay, this is it. I'm ripe. I'm ready for truth. I no longer want this, because this isn't leading to growth. This is leading to suffering. Okay, mentally, a lot of it has to do with timing and managing your time, managing, allocating your resources here, also in regards to, sort of what you do when. Okay, when is the right time? Are the conditions right? What are the conditions? You need a strategy, you need a roadmap for this, guys. This is all about discerning the essential, and you can not do this with your mind. You can only do this with your unified heart mind, where you bring your heart's perspective that reminds you of the essential, what is truly important to you, your values and priorities, and what helps you to form this integrity navigator in you. Okay, you can only get this through unifying the two. So this is where the Grace Mental Heart Fusion Marathon comes in very handy here over the weekend. In your relationships, yeah, there'll be things that you will see with an almost surgical precision clarity. Okay, and you won't like it because that's part of what you've been avoiding. All right, so does this mean that you have to cut everything off and that the victim in you gets reconfirmed? Well, sure, you can choose that, but that's feeding the ego wolf in you. All right, that's feeding the material part of it. Witness your own parts instead, guys, and focus on what truly makes you feel content and connected within, instead of what makes your ego feel good about itself. All right, and especially in romantic relationships, stop focusing on the other, what the other needs to change or what the other needs to do better. Okay, look at yourself. All right, you can take responsibility when you make this choice to consciously live in your truth as a true self. There's no problem with this because you don't need to judge this anymore. So you don't need to blame or project. All right, you focus on your needs, you focus on your wants, you focus on your boundaries, and then you treat that with respect, and you treat other people's needs and wants and boundaries with respect as well. This is how you bring balance. This is how you bring harmony in there. And another keyword for you next week is, it's totally okay to work on, new or renegotiate new rules of engagement. I've said this quite a few times. This is about what you cultivate. Okay, so you can choose what you want to cultivate within your relationship or within your family. That's up to you, but it needs to be communicated. All right, so in the spiritual, the way I see it there is, I don't know if you're familiar with the white buffalo woman medicine. She brings in traditions to the tribe, okay, to the nations, that help them to live together in harmony with the Great Spirit. This is such a beautiful analogy. All right, so read this up. White buffalo woman. It's a very, very beautiful analogy, very beautiful metaphor for what is happening here spiritually for all of us. It's recognizing the sacredness. That is sophisticated, guys. That is a mature way of seeing yourself and identifying yourself. Okay, this is, where most of the damage is done if you cannot recognize this. And again, in the White Buffalo Woman, the damage is being shown very clearly. So, spiritual freedom is the ability to discern what you're experiencing, the ability to see through illusion, through idealizations, identifications, and also manipulation. And the way this happens is through actively connecting with your true self. So you notice this, right? I'm always talking about the same thing. I'm just looking at it through a different lens, from a different perspective. So energetically, what does this mean? There is a responsibility that comes with you receiving these upgrades, this new pair of eyes, this new higher levels of perceptivity, and that is that you need to actively discern what it is, because if you cannot discern what it is that you're perceiving there, then you're going to go crazy or sick or become a narcissist. Because, see, you don't just get these new technologies. In this case, it's an internal technology, all right, to just play around with it. You get this because you have the maturity, theoretically, to handle it. But many of us are not quite sure yet. We haven't really made peace within ourselves that this is who we truly are. And so, energy management, self mastery, self discovery, self transformation, guys, those are all tools that can help you to better understand what is going on within and around you, and to better discern your own truth, your own integrity, your own values, and your own sacredness. All right, guys. So this is enough. Lots of deep issues here in these energy tips. I'm wishing you a wonderful week next week, and I'm hurrying up with the forecast for October. We have the current energies discussion for October for Sacred Self Healing members on Monday. And just a quick note here: if you don't know what the Sacred Self Healing course is, it's a literally step-by-step organic course to teach you how to let go of these layers and how to increase and hold these higher vibratory energies within yourself to help you through this transition of, transcending your ego's addiction. Bye, everyone. Love you. See you next week.